Hi, this is Dr. David Dobson. Welcome to Conversations. Today, my guest is Janelle Marietta. Janelle is a PhD candidate in Cultural, Social, and Political Thought program at the University of Lethbridge. Today, we will discuss her research, which explores the use of social marketing strategies to improve immigration settlement outcomes, particularly within not for profit organizations. It's a pleasure to have you on my show, Janelle.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to be able to chat today.
Janelle, you have been working in leadership roles in the not for profit sector for more than 15 years. What prompted your decision to pursue a PhD?
Yeah, I have a long history in the nonprofit. I started really early out of my I essentially graduating from high school and getting into that field through volunteering, through just different roles, and so my heart's definitely been in that industry, and I've definitely spent a lot of my adult life working in that realm. Started out in more of the seniors health areas, and have worked progressively into more broader conversations around community building, poverty reduction, immigration settlement, those types of things. So certainly, my heart is there and have been fortunate enough to build a lot of experience in that realm as executive director of the United Way here in Lethbridge. As well as organizations like 211 Alberta, looking at service navigation. So I feel like I've seen it from many angles and love that sector. Absolutely. Moving into my PhD, and I think a lot of my work with the nonprofit sector really sparked that interest in research and how research helps us with more informed decisions at the community level, really thinking about how we can address some of the social issues that are coming up. And so that certainly became an important part of my role in the nonprofit sector and sparked what I would consider a passion for research. So that really got me thinking. I think for a long time, I started my Master of Science in Management, and that really, in that journey, in that process, really did set kind of the stage for me wanting to get into academia and to really, I knew that I wanted to finish my PhD, but I also knew that to be strong in my research and particularly to serve the nonprofit sector well, I wanted to have a bit more experience in that field as well. So I have tried really hard to parallel my learning in academia with my learning in more of the industry based at the same time. I think that's been a really huge advantage for me, even just as simple as getting participants, as I know we all know in academia, that can be a
Yeah,
challenge. It
yeah.
helps to have those relationships already. So
Mm.
that's what got me kind of started. I knew that was overall goal is to get into a PhD and start that trajectory. And now here I am.
Wonderful, Janelle. Janelle, your PhD research explores how social marketing strategies improve immigration settlement outcomes for not for profit organizations. Could you please tell us more about your research topic?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a team of researchers, and it kind of starts back to when I was at the United Way as executive director. I was sitting on a committee for a student who was doing research in immigration as well, and so that really sparked that focus as we started to build our team in this area. So there are quite a few of us in the marketing, interestingly enough, in the marketing field at the University of Lethbridge that are focused on immigration, which is phenomenal. And that's really where I wanted to build. As we were going through that research, looking at barriers, it became quite evident that there are huge gaps in more tailored services for children, youth, seniors, in that realm when it comes to settlement. And so that became kind of a passion for me as a mom. I know
Mm,
how difficult parenting is
mhm.
just in general.
Yeah,
And so it became really important for us to start to think about how immigration is impacting community in different ways, right? And so
wonderful.
yeah, that's kind of where it started. I'll give you a quick background though on the
Yeah,
research itself.
yeah.
Um, it is focused specifically on barriers for parents
Mm,
or sorry, newcomer parents in
mm,
the Lethbridge area. So we're looking
mm,
very much at small to mid-sized level community
mm,
immigration and
mm,
how communities can retain newcomers in their
mm,
community to build that.
yeah. Can you just give me some idea? for new immigrants, what are the some of the challenges for the parents as they settle into
Yeah,
the new place?
yeah, and I think it's really important. The research we're seeing now, it's really pointing to how important tailored services are, but
Mm,
that's not always the answer either. So
yeah,
it's kind of an interesting parallel and a
yeah,
paradox in itself.
yeah.
But a lot of parents we're talking to, there's a lot of isolation happening, whether
Mm,
it's because of language.
mm,
I mean, I think
mm,
anyone who's had a little one go from that 0 to 5 stage knows how
yeah,
difficult it can be to just navigate the world with a little one in tow.
yeah.
And so we're definitely seeing a lot of isolation and a
Mm,
lot of challenges around families who might not speak English as their first language,
mm,
just feeling really disconnected from community and feeling
mm,
the challenges of getting access to just other families and kids
mm,
and peers.
mm,
And so looking at ways to build bridges in that realm and get
mm,
families connected there. But that has definitely been a
mm,
trend coming up
mm,
is those particular populations
mm,
are quite underserved, and
mm,
there are very few tailored programs or resources for child, youth, and senior settlement as well.
mm, mm,
Yeah.
mm. Janelle, with regards to your PhD research, what approach are you taking to conduct your study?
Yeah, great question. We're taking a really interesting, I think a really interesting,
Yeah,
and this is something what sparked my interest in research in general, is social marketing, or looking at behavior
okay.
change marketing.
Yeah,
And that is a tool that we are using quite heavily with the nonprofit sector.
yeah.
You can look at social marketing or behavior change
Mm,
marketing, whichever
mm,
term you want to use.
mm,
You can look at it from the individual level, but you can also
mm,
see it from both an organizational level and a community level. And so
mm,
it's been really interesting kind of framing this work in a way that puts ownership back on
mm,
community to
mm,
be part of the settlement process
mm,
for immigration.
mm,
And so that's been something that we've been really heavily focused on.
mm.
But my actual methods, I do
Yeah,
mixed methods. So I use qualitative and quantitative.
yeah.
And I think that's really important
Mm,
particularly in the marketing field.
mm,
It's always really important to be able to tie back to the theories that we're using in this field and to be able to kind of apply that back into community in meaningful ways.
yeah,
So we are definitely doing both. I started off with a big, fun,
yeah.
systematic literature review. I know we've all been through that lovely journey, and it is,
Sure.
but it's really important. And
Yeah.
then we've gotten into more of community-based participatory research.
Mm,
And so
yeah.
that becomes, again, looking at how we're co-creating with community and how we're actually addressing some of the social issues that are coming up,
Yeah.
but also letting the community guide what the
Yeah.
priorities are in that research. So it's been
Mm,
a really cool journey that way.
yeah. I know, yeah, you mentioned a collaborative approach. Can you
Mhm.
maybe talk about a little bit of this collaborative approach and the stakeholders you are seeking to involve in this study?
Yeah, absolutely. So we use community-based participatory
Mm,
research, which we always
mm,
call CBPR.
yeah.
That falls under the PAR umbrella, or the
Yeah.
participatory action research umbrella.
Yeah.
And so, really, the big value or the main values of that method become including community in the whole process, like the whole design of your research.
Mm,
And so we've been able to collaborate with community members, both from the nonprofit perspective, but also from the immigration perspective, having an advisory team that can guide some of those decisions, help us determine where our focus needs to be. And so it was actually it was a really great process. And it was through the community-based participatory research advisory team with experience in immigration and with experience in nonprofit that actually helped determine that was one of the main focuses, that we needed to look at children and youth, particularly the parents that are supporting that population through
mm,
immigration. So
yeah.
it is a really exciting field. I think I'm having a blast. It's a great time. It's a
Great.
very new, yeah, very new way of approaching research for a lot of researchers, and I think we're really pushing the boundaries. But
Yeah.
it is really, I think it's really a really fun, a really rewarding way to go about
Yeah.
research. That's awesome.
Janelle, what are some of the initial learning you have made in your study?
Yeah. Well, I mean, sadly, we're seeing definitely through the systematic review that a lot of the same issues we've had over the past few decades are still issues we're having, which is unfortunate. It's certainly,
Mm,
there's those big systemic issues of
mm,
how certifications are transferred for particularly for those coming on economic visas to Canada. It makes it really challenging, right? Finding access into the new job market and having those credentials recognized. So that is always going to continue, I think, being one of the bigger challenges, and one that I think is outside of our scope of work, but certainly is something that's been highlighted in that systematic review. But other pieces, again, is the challenges for small to mid-sized communities in actually retaining newcomer settlement. We have a lot of onward migration occurring. A lot of people come to smaller communities through different visas and realize, you know what, this is not for me, and migrate back to the larger centers. And so that becomes a really big kind of, again, question across Canada is, how are we supporting settlement? How are we helping people build community where they're at, and really going through that? And so the research is certainly highlighting the importance of tailored supports. I know I've mentioned, but it becomes a really important piece of this conversation around how we help build those networks and build those communities, and you know, make our cities a really vibrant and great place to want to settle and build community or build families. The other piece as well is the kind of the glaring concerns on cultural safety training, or looking at how service providers are being informed on best practice and what they can do to actually support more of that settlement process for individuals. So lots of things are popping up, but it is certainly highlighting some of the opportunities for us to address. And so I think it'll be an exciting couple of years moving forward here.
Yeah, very, very, very interesting findings. Janelle, what do you hope to contribute with your research?
Yeah, I think for me, in the short term is, of course, building some solutions to some of these problems that we've been identifying through the research that we're doing. But I think a big piece of this puzzle is also how we bridge research from academic communities into our overall community, and how do we bridge some of those pathways to creating solutions. And so that becomes a really important part of the work that I'm doing is that relationship building as well, in how we can continue to use things like community-based participatory research as best practice in some of this field. And so certainly that's what I'm hoping to do, is to kind of get more of that work going through both the academic community as well as some of our community organizations, individuals in community that have that understanding of the issues that are coming up.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
What are your next steps, Janelle?
Well, for me, I guess, and maybe I kind of get into this, the whole story of how I ended up doing my PhD here in Lethbridge.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's a really big piece is, you know, looking at what's next in your last year of academic. The PhD can be quite frightening, and so there's certainly, I know the hard work. I always joke that the comps is the hardest, but I know that the hardest is coming as well. So I don't know if there's any one spot that's harder than the rest. The job market gets to be a whole different thing as well. So certainly learning to navigate that process and try to land a position in academics is certainly the goal. But having said that, keeping an open mind, knowing that there's lots of opportunity in community positions as well to start to bridge those, bridge research into community, and find ways to bring that there. I got really lucky. I might digress and kind of go into a story, but I got quite lucky with how I ended up here and how this all happened. It wasn't always the plan with U of L. I had originally applied for a master's program in Australia, and had been accepted and was going to go, and that was all very exciting, and that was great. In my journey, I have a son with a disability, and so we've been kind of navigating that process, and that actually ended up becoming quite a large barrier for us in terms of immigration. And so it turned out in that process that we were unable to actually immigrate because he would not have had the right supports in the school system. It
Mm,
would have been quite costly for us to actually bring him to a different community without
yeah.
having the residency, right? And so
Mm,
that really bubbled something up in me in terms of
mm,
my interest in just how people migrate and how that
yeah.
process looks for lots of different community
Uh,
members. And so that really ended up how
mm,
everything got turned around, and I ended
yeah.
up doing my
Yeah.
PhD in Canada.
Yeah.
But it was a really, I think, a really
Yeah.
a good journey, and I think that's a really
Yeah.
important way that it landed me here, because
Yeah.
I did end up in a PhD with an interdisciplinary
Mm,
lens, right? And
mm,
so
yeah.
it's been a really cool process going
Yeah.
through that lens to understand some of
Yeah.
the barriers that are coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Janelle, based on your own experience in industry, you almost worked 20 years actually, and pursuing a PhD, which could be challenging at times. What advice would you offer to industry professionals returning to academia for a PhD after a long career?
Yeah, I think it's a big question and it's a tough one
Yeah,
because there's a
yeah,
lot of factors at play.
yeah.
But
Mm,
I guess I always say, for me, I think it was really helpful for me to make that decision because I had
mm,
always basically had always been doing both. I've
mm,
always found ways
yeah,
to kind of parallel
yeah.
my industry work with my learning
Mm,
in research.
mm,
And so I think that for that it was kind of a, if you're already naturally finding those ways to do research, it's probably a good direction for you to go in terms of just building on those
mm,
interests and building
yeah.
on. I think research, the skills that you learn at a master's level and at a PhD level, those skills are so critical for our
Mm,
communities, and
mm,
for making good decisions in terms of implementing services, determining where we need to focus our efforts. So I think it's never going to be a bad idea. However, I do want to kind of emphasize how huge of a commitment a PhD actually is. I think
mm.
I always have to laugh when people say, "Oh, people just do a PhD because they had no other ideas." I'm like, I don't think that's true. I think it takes quite a lot of effort and challenge
That's
and
true.
commitment to go through that process, and you'd have to be
Yeah,
pretty stubborn
yeah,
to get through the 4 years
yeah,
without it being something
yeah,
that you care deeply about. So I think
yeah.
it's certainly it's massive growth. It's a
Mm,
massive growth
mm,
of kind of
yeah,
intellectually,
yeah,
emotionally,
yeah,
financially. It's a big
yeah,
commitment, right?
yeah, yeah,
And so I definitely wouldn't say it's the path for everyone,
yeah,
but I would say that if it's something you're feeling really passionate about, or
yeah,
your interests are kind of aligning there, you definitely should give it a try. It's a rewarding experience. You're going to change and think, like, you're going to learn things that you didn't even know you needed to learn. It's like kind of working out, right? When you go do a workout, you go, oh, I have a muscle that hurts. I didn't even know I had that muscle. I equate that to a PhD. You are going to grow in every possible aspect of your life.
yeah,
It's going to be really difficult. There are years
yeah,
I'm smiling now, but
yeah,
a year ago going through the comp exams, a whole different game, right?
yeah,
So I think there's lots of just knowing it's a big
mm,
personal journey, and you need to have really great people
yeah,
in your life that can put up with you
mm,
crying or having a
yeah,
no, I'm just teasing, but
yeah,
it is really good. So I think no matter what,
mm,
I don't think you would regret doing it.
mm, mm,
Whether and just say, not everyone necessarily finishes it too, and that's
mm,
okay. That's
mm,
completely fine if you get through half and realize it's not the path for you. That's still a really important lesson, and you're still
mm,
learning really important things through that process. So I don't think there's
mm,
any really any detriment, but
mm,
just recognizing the huge commitment, and you're gonna go through a journey, and that's an
yeah.
exciting journey to go through. But just buckle up and be ready, because it's a test of your endurance, most definitely.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your story
Yeah,
and research, Janelle. All the
absolutely.
best with finishing your PhD.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was great chatting.